You don't really need them. I'm just monitoring the volume.
We're live.
We're live. Waiting for some people to tune in. What's going on? If anybody's on here already, we're going to give it a few minutes for people to log on here. We're actually doing it a little different this week. We're doing, I'm actually up in Michigan with my buddy Darryl here, doing some fishing. And so we're shooting remote for the first time. Really simple setup with a new mic and just the computer. And so hopefully the sound's coming through well. So if it's not, just shoot here in the comments and let me know, and we can tweak it a little bit. But I've been messing around with it. I think it should be good. But like I was saying, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into introducing Darryl. This is Darryl Holtz, and he's a fishing captain. He guides here in Michigan, grew up here in Michigan, and then he also spends a lot of time down in Florida in the winter. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I just ran out of the car and grabbed a water because me and Darryl were like, I think we need some waters for this. But yeah, I'm going to let Darryl kind of take it away in just a second. But I'm going to first do the normal thing and jump in and share our sponsors. And always thank them. iStrike, who's a huge supporter of the show. They've got some awesome jigs, jig heads, and different baits and whatnot. And we've actually got a little code for them. You get extra 10% off when you go on and purchase them on their website. And Marshwear and AFTCO, we love them, and they're just great supporters of the show. They usually give us a bunch of product to give away. I have product to give away, but I did not bring any up here, so we're just not going to do a giveaway this week. But yeah, Marshwear, AFTCO, iStrike. I'm struggling here because Billy's always on here helping me out. But yeah, so I'm gonna give it away to Darryl and let him kind of tell his backstory. So how did you get into fishing, Darryl?
It's kind of just a funny story, really. I broke up with a girlfriend and was kind of just looking for another hobby to get into, just something to kind of get away from that. So I picked up fishing, and it kind of just spread like wildfire, and here we are now. It all started about 5.5 years ago now. I just got a bass rod from Cabela's or whatever, and was throwing frogs and throwing some crankbaits and stuff at the local ponds and lakes, and I quickly picked up on the whole steelhead thing. Kind of got a center pin, started doing some center pin fishing for steelhead, and I really liked that. That's kind of what started my whole addiction and kind of took it to the next level. And yeah, now here we are now. I'm a captain. I do charters in Florida. I do charters here in Michigan, and it's pretty awesome. I get to do a lot of really cool fishing. So
that's awesome. Looking at this is my first time ever up to Michigan, and looking at it on Google Earth, which I've been doing a lot of lately. It looks like South Florida, like the amount of water everywhere. There's lakes and ponds and rivers and just so much access. So being a kid and getting into fishing around here, there's definitely no shortage of options of what to do. Now you said you played golf pretty competitively as well, right? Through college and whatnot.
Yep. Yeah. I played golf at Madonna University for a couple seasons, and I really liked that. But I didn't have time for fishing. I just wanted to go fishing every day. So especially being on the golf courses with all the largemouth and ponds and everything.
Yeah, for sure. You're playing golf and thinking about fish.
Yeah.
That's usually how I feel when I'm playing golf. I'm pretty terrible at it. But well, cool. Well, let's jump into kind of talking about your fishery here. Like you said, you started fishing not super long ago, 5-6 years. And Darryl, I've had the pleasure of fishing with him. I guess his mom lives down in North Carolina, in Southport, North Carolina. And he reached out to me a couple years ago and jumped on the boat with me in Wilmington, and we've since fished in Louisiana. And then I finally hit him up to come up here and do some steelhead fishing. He's been just catching the crap out of some massive steelhead, and I was like, I've got to go do that. I've never done it before. But where was I going with that? Yeah, we're jumping into kind of your fishery here. So we're gonna kind of at the first part of the show cover what he does up here in Michigan, kind of the different fisheries that he has, the different fish he goes after, how he targets them, and then we're going to jump into what he does in South Florida around the Naples area. But let's start out with like your summer when you get back up here you're spending winter down in Florida. So like, how does your time here progress from like the beginning of getting here, the first fish that you're kind of targeting, and then through until right now until you head back to Florida?
Yeah. So when I get back, I'm generally coming back end of April. When we first get back, we're looking for the smallmouth. The smallmouth bass are going to be getting ready to spawn. They're going to be in the full pre-spawn mode, just putting the feed bag on. They're pissed off. They just want to eat streamers. It's really, really fun fishing, and it's just something that even the beginner angler can do. The more experienced definitely is a little more successful at it, but it's something that someone who's looking to get into fly fishing or just getting into it can be really successful at and have a great time doing it. That's definitely one of my favorite fish to guide for here in Michigan. It's really easy guiding, and the clients love it, and you're catching, tons and tons of fish every day, 20, 30 plus fish in a day with multiple shots at fish over 4, 5, 6 pounds.
That's awesome.
And, they're eating 3, 4 inch long streamers. Murdish minnow is definitely a favorite for them. Yeah. And, it's just really, really cool, fun fishing.
And you and I both made the point earlier. We're like, oh, we love fly fishing, but we do a lot of, light tackle and gear fishing as well. Is that something that's pretty productive on the smallmouth up here in the same areas?
Yeah. I feel like the fly is better for them.
The fly is better for them?
Yeah. Honestly,
even with like a client that can't throw it quite as well?
It doesn't matter. The fly is still better. I've had some of my really good buddies come out with me gear fishing, and they're drop shotting and fishing Ned rigs and everything. And he'll just sit there just pissed at me because I'm like, beating him 10-1 on fish. And he just looks at me like, how the heck are you catching them all on the fly? And I'm sitting here struggling with the Ned rig.
That's awesome.
So we actually did a little test with him. We had him set up a drop shot rig with a Murdish minnow fly on it. And he actually caught more fish using the same fly we were using on his drop shot.
Oh my gosh.
Than he did using like a saw plastic on a drop shot rig. So
it's something about how those materials, the buoyancy and the way they kind of.
Yeah, the way they move. And it's the profile. I think it's the profile has a big thing to do with it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Those Murdish minnows are deadly. You said you catch steelhead on those.
Yep.
And everything.
Yeah, I've caught just about everything: snook, redfish, tarpon. I mean, the Murdish minnow is a great all-around fly for just about anything.
That's awesome. So smallmouth's the kind of the first. How long is that season last when you'll get back and start fishing for them? When?
Yeah, it kind of end of April. I'd say it starts up like second, third week of April. You can start catching them a little bit, but depending on the water temps and how the winter is, it changes every year. May is probably the best month for them. You can consistently go out pretty much every day and, have shots at 30, 40 fish. Golly. And, have some big ones in there too. And then as soon as kind of end of May hits, again, depending on the water temps and how the season's been, they kind of start to get into that spawning mode. I don't like fishing them on beds. I won't fish them on beds. It is what it is. I really like targeting them in that pre-spawn mode. Even through the end of May, though, you can still catch fish in 8 to 12 feet of water, and you can still catch them in 4 to 6 feet of water through all that too. So
that's awesome.
Some cases you actually get to see them and watch them come up and eat the fly. Yeah. And like your videos in Louisiana, you get a bunch of redfish chasing up the fly. Yeah. You get some of that with the smallmouth too, or you have multiple hookups on the same cast. When they're in their thick, it's really pretty crazy fishing. So. Yeah,
just that kind of like gangbusters going after. That's super fun. We're actually sitting right here. What is this lake called to our right?
Torch Lake.
Torch Lake. So we're sitting here at our buddy's house, but definitely I met him through Darryl, but Jay Cooper, who also does a good bit of fishing. And they do a lot of their stuff based out of this area right here. And there's some pretty big. You were saying, is it state record smallmouth? Or was it the muskie?
The muskie, yeah, the muskie was caught.
There's just so many fish up here. I can't even keep up with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely tons of options up here in northern Michigan, all throughout Michigan, really. I mean, depending on what time of year it is, there's always, multiple species you can go out and target and be successfully catching.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Even in the winter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What are some of the main fish you're going after in the winter? The steelhead for sure. Right?
Yeah, like right now, kind of the only thing I'm really looking at is brown trout and steelhead. Okay. And steelhead are definitely the primary target this time of year. I'm only here through the end of November, and then I head back down to Florida, but all through the rest of this month, the steelhead fishing should be really good. Yeah. And there's still more fish coming in right now. So.
Right on.
Yep.
All right. So your smallmouth fishing kind of tapers off, or I guess the fishing's still pretty solid, but what you move into kind of your next little mini season. What is that? Is that the carp fishing?
Yep. That's going to be the carp. Again, it's hard to say what is my favorite in Michigan. I really like all the different species that we get to target and fish to. Every one of them is a little bit different, like from smallmouth fishing with streamers on an intermediate line to carp fishing with basically a bonefish setup, like a 9-weight with a Grand Slam, and, fishing a 10 to 12 foot leader with a big sinking fly, with, large dumbbells on it. and you're literally stalking these carp just like you would a bonefish on the flats in Florida. You're sight fishing them from 100+ feet away. You see them cruising a shoreline or just cruising out in the middle, and it's really, really cool fishing. It requires some pretty serious angling experience, though. It definitely requires a good cast and a really, really
Would you
good
say they're
presentation.
tougher than redfish and bonefish?
From the little bit of bone fishing that I've done, I'd say they're pretty much right on par with a bonefish. Yeah, they require a spot on presentation. We call it the dinner plate. If you can get it on that dinner plate, you've got a good shot. But if you can't, you can't feed them. Sometimes they won't chase it. Other times it doesn't matter. Other times they'll chase it down from 15 feet and come and eat it like a smallmouth would. But awesome. Definitely harder than the redfish, from at least what I've seen, what I've done with you. But
so for people that haven't seen the water up here at Lake Michigan, like describe kind of the sight fishing abilities for carp up here. Because like when you can kind of sight fish carp in some areas in North Carolina and other places down south, but it's dirtier water and it's kind of these mud flats that you can't see quite as well as up here.
Yeah. The water up here is gin clear, absolutely gin clear. It's just like the Florida Keys or the Bahamas. I mean, you can see we've actually been sight fishing like Cisco and lake trout in like 40 foot of water in the springtime. You're sitting there jigging it and you can see them come up, eat the jig, you set the hook on them, everything. So crazy. It's pretty cool. The water here is amazingly clear. The rivers are clear, everything's clear. And so it makes it really cool for sight fishing for those carp up on the flats. It's, you can see them from often 200 yards away, and you get to watch them and go kind of pick out that individual carp that you want.
That's cool. And you were telling me you're running a trolling motor mostly for these. Like you'll have a polling skiff here, but they don't like the sound of the push pole as much.
No, the push pole definitely spooks them out on the rocks. They really don't like that. And the trolling motor definitely makes some noise, but I can kill it and just kind of put it on anchor mode or whatever, and then pause it like right while you're doing the cast. A lot of the times you see these fish far enough away that you can set the boat up before they get there and have it ready for them. And all you got to do is just shut the trolling motor off, let the client or whoever's fishing take the shot, and it's either gonna make or break. You get one shot on
Is it a retrieve like you would with a redfish or a bonefish, or is it more of just kind of let it sit on the bottom and then come pick it up?
Yeah, so the way I always look at it is you just want to get their attention. As soon as you do like a big pop and they see it and you see them engaging the fly, you generally want to leave it. But sometimes it takes a couple long strips and then a couple big pops. You got to just, I think once you've triggered the response for them to eat, they're going to eat it. Kind of like what they do with the bonefish. Like they say, as soon as the bonefish is on it, they want you to leave it there and let them come up and eat it. Because they've got that down facing mouth, it's important that you let it sit there so they can actually suck it up and then hit them. You always want to kind of wait for them a little bit.
Yeah, that's so when you think you've got them, it's not like it's kind of easing into that strip set if you're fly fishing, right?
Yeah, like a lot of times people will set the hook too early because they think they've got it because they're right over top of it, sitting there on that fly, trying to eat it, but they haven't fully got it yet.
So you do a lot of fly fishing for the carp. Is it possible to go out there and sight fish them with a spinning rod?
We've tried it, and honestly, we've not been able to do it yet.
Y'all are just better with the fly rod.
We've had a couple guys like get bites using small jig heads with soft plastics, like crayfish soft plastics. One thing we want to try this year is trying to get some live crayfish and going out there and throwing a live crayfish at them and see what happens.
That'd be really cool.
But for the most part, the flies work really well. We kind of same thing we were doing with my buddy Chris with the smallmouth rig. We've had guys casting some of our flies on spinning rods, like some of the tungsten weighted beadhead ones, and they're casting them on a spinning rod and catching them.
That's cool.
So pretty cool.
Are you fishing pretty big profile flies and baits for the carp, or really tiny little stuff?
Yeah, it varies. For the most part, we're fishing like 2 to like 3.5 inch long flies. Okay. A lot of it's going to be natural color stuff like olive variant, browns, tans, black is even pretty good. You just really crayfish, just tight patterns. Yeah. Mainly rabbit strip. You don't really go far from that. Very minimal flash in the flies. It's just as natural.
Just a natural kind of crayfish something.
Yeah. You could probably use some of the redfish flies that you guys fish, like some of those shrimp patterns and stuff here. The problem is you just got to have no flash. How clear the water is. They don't like the flash at all.
It just needs to be real natural.
Yeah.
Right on. So how long does that carp fishing season last?
It kind of ends July. The latest that I think I've got them up here has been really like late June, like June 25th or so. So kind of as soon as that hits, we're kind of over it, and we've kind of just transitioned out. We're just kind of ready to take a little break, and July is kind of the slowest month of the year for fishing up here. There's kind of like a little lull where there's really not a ton going on. There's still options here in July. The summer run steelhead are down in the lower southwest side of the state, and they do get some up north here, but a limited amount. We kind of switch over from the carp into jigging for lake trout. That's kind of the main viable option that's out here for us, and it's actually right down the road. It's 10 minutes from here, and we're jigging lake trout and anywhere from like 40 to 180 feet out in Grand Traverse Bay, and it's pretty cool. You're vertical jigging for them with jigging spoons.
So it's a lot like some saltwater style fishing that you'd be doing.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going out looking for, big breaks or ledges, mainly ledges, anywhere from like the 80 to 100-foot depth is what we've been doing really good in. And, there's not a ton of giant fish. It's not like Lake Superior, but we had multiple
they all
fish
seem
over
pretty
20 pounds.
Pretty giant. Like I caught some lake trout when I used to work up in Alaska, and I thought they were big trout. And the lake trout that I've seen you post pictures of are like, what's the biggest one you've put your hands on?
Biggest one I personally put my hands on was a little bit over 30 pounds.
Golly. Yeah. And how big, like what are the biggest ones you're hearing of in a summer? Maybe not the world or the state record, but what's like a really solid fish for the year?
The biggest one that I heard being caught up on Lake Superior this year was like 50, I want to say it was 52 pounds. And then my buddy up there, my good friend Pat Magdaleno, he got a 41 pounder up there too.
That's crazy. Do they fight pretty hard?
They do. We're fishing them on light tackle, 35, 4500 series spinning reels, and they fight pretty good. They they definitely do a couple nice runs, and as soon as they see the boat, they freak out and take off again. But it's definitely a pretty neat fishery. A lot of the times you get other fish following these fish up, so you'll be fighting
other lake trout.
Other lake trout following them up. Sometimes you even have like coho salmon follow them up in a school. So it's pretty cool. And I was telling you earlier about how you can actually be fighting one, it'll come off, and you just keep reeling or you keep popping the jig as fast as you can, and they'll come back and eat it again.
It's like an amberjack.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So definitely a pretty cool fish.
What are you looking for? Are you looking for structure and, like live bottom like you do in the ocean when you're looking for those lake trout, or are you just cruising around until you mark a school of them?
We kind of just do a lot of looking. I like to do a lot of drift fishing when I'm jigging for them. I'll pick a depth where I've been marking them or seeing them. Like on any given day, it changes a little bit, and we just kind of do drifts in that same depth that they're in on that given day. That's
super cool.
Yeah.
We have a question here from John. He said, "So where in Michigan is this? Are you guys fishing smaller lakes, rivers, Lake Michigan?" And this is the lower peninsula you were saying?
We're in the lower peninsula of Michigan. Right now, we're up in the northwest side of Michigan, up in Traverse City area. A lot of the fishing that we're doing right now is based out of this area on like the Manistee River, Pure Marquette River, Muskegon River, and some of the other tributaries over here on the west side. But I kind of move around a lot while I'm here in Michigan. I go from downstate on the southeast side of Michigan, starting with the smallmouth on Lake St. Clair. And then from there, I move up north here to do smallmouth in Grand Traverse Bay. And then I switch to carp, which is also in Grand Traverse Bay. And then from there, we transition into the salmon, steelhead, and where we're at now.
Right on. And how far are we from Canada? It's pretty close, right?
Yeah, we're technically like our longitude is the same as Canada right now. Like you could drive straight east and you'd be in Canada. Yeah, but
it's freaking cold up here. It's snowed. It's been snowing since we got here yesterday for the most part.
Yeah,
not sticking, but just on and off snow. It snowed on us all day on the river today.
Yeah,
and it was. I have a cold, as you can probably hear, and it's. Yeah, I don't think it was very good for me, but it is cold. I mean, I thought it was getting cold in Wilmington, and was wearing my jacket in the morning, and I texted Darryl and I was like, what should we bring layer wise up there? And he's like, everything, just bring everything you have. And it was enough, but my feet were cold, my hands were a little cold, my face was cold. Just kind of a wimp. Sorry. So what are some of the other, or what's the next season you step into? And we're talking about the main seasons. You also do a bunch of other little, muskie and other things like that. But so from the lake trout, what's the next kind of step for your fishing season?
So after the lake trout, that's kind of like a whole summer thing. Like I said, we do a little playing around with the summer on steelhead, but then the king salmon come in, and there's a lot of bad stigma about the Great Lakes king salmon, but they're a pretty badass fish. They really are. They pull extremely hard. They are extremely fun, whether you're fishing with them or fishing for them with a gear rod, fishing skein under a bobber, or if you're stripping streamers for them with a 10 weight, or you want to go spay fish for them, or throw crankbaits. There's multiple ways to target them. And no matter which way you do hook them, it always sucks fighting them. They pull so freaking hard. They're like freight trains, and they just want to break you off on everything they can. Awesome. But
what's the size for those salmon?
Mostly, like this year, the average size I'd say was like 22 to 26 pounds. Yet last year was a little bit smaller, maybe like 18 pounds. But
Gotcha.
For the most part, they're over 10 pounds, and you do get a lot of fish over the 20-pound class.
Yeah.
This year was a really, really, really good year for the salmon. We I don't even know how many 30-pound plus fish I had this year. We probably had at least 20 fish over 30 pounds in the boat this year.
Man, that's awesome.
So it was a pretty good season for it.
That's super cool. And what are you, or if you're fly, is that an 8 weight, 8, 9 weight?
Like 10 weight.
10 weight. Okay.
Yeah. Like you hook a 30-pound chrome king in the river, he's going to whip your butt.
Yeah, that's true.
They pull real hard. You're fishing just straight 30-pound off of a sink tip and just hold on.
Yeah.
You better get ready, because they'll pull that rod right out of your hands.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I was talking to Darryl about is like, we both love doing a lot of fly fishing. I think that was kind of the basis of why we both got into guiding. We loved fly fishing. But we were talking today about how important it is to really diversify in your fishing and in your angling. You can learn so much from picking up a spinning rod, picking up a bait caster, and doing all different types of fishing. There's so much that just applies across the board. Like today, we were doing a lot of fly fishing, but we had some bait casters rigged up, and we would fish these same runs and same holes different ways. And picked up some fish that way, picked up some bites that way. And one of the ways I was talking to Darryl about, like sitting straight up current with a bait caster and dropping these beads, they're resembling salmon eggs that these steelhead are eating, straight back. You can get this really natural drift. And I was telling Darryl, my buddy Michael, who's here in town with me fishing, I was like, man, this would be an incredible way to fish for speckled trout with a real light bait, to be able to sit right above them and get like a really perfect drift. A real long way down the bank. And a lot of guys are doing that with bobbers and shrimp, live shrimp, but there's just, you start to get all these parallels that click, and you're like, oh man, I could take this here and it would benefit me that way, and vice versa. And maybe even like you're talking about jigging for this lake trout, and it's making me thinking of like amberjacks and jigging for grouper and stuff like that. There's just a lot that crosses over. All right. So the co-host, what's your favorite? What you keep saying you don't really have a favorite, but there's got to be one that you love targeting the most.
It's a tough one, because I like the sight fishing of the carp. I love that, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to go with the Chinook, just because they pull so dang hard. They pull so hard, yeah. I'm like a just tug junkie for sure. Like I like the big fish that pull hard. I love the amberjacks. The big sharks.
You like the fight?
Yeah, I like the fight.
You're a fighter.
I want this fish to try to show me what's up.
Right.
Make me not catch you.
Yeah.
But, hooking them's not a big problem. It's just landing them sucks. I mean, you go out. I've had days where you go out, you hook 10 fish, and you don't land one of them. They break you off on every time. You're fishing 30-pound, they break you off. So
yeah,
they're a humbling fish, and it's cool to see a fish with that much power in fresh water.
And explain like the kind of the cycle of the salmon when it comes up in the river. It's crazy, because you were saying within 5 days of them being in the river, they're not worth eating anymore for the most part.
Yeah. So because they're coming in from Lake Michigan into our rivers here, our rivers are a little bit warmer than what they have out west, where the salmon are originally from. So the meat deteriorates a little bit quicker. It becomes a little bit mushy. They're still good eating, especially if you're going to smoke them or whatever. They're probably good in the river for like a month after they come in, still edible. And then after that, they kind of start using all their energy to go towards their spawning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We were seeing some salmon today that were pretty nasty.
Yeah, the big old white broomtails.
Oh gosh, swimming around on their sides. They don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, they're
anymore.
just you see the big mud sharks coming out, and they literally look like they're just covered in mud. They're just zombies, fully rotted out.
They're gnarly looking.
Yeah, they sure are fun when they're chrome though.
Oh man,
I'll tell you.
I bet. I bet. I miss the salmon fishing I got to do back when I was in Alaska. All right, so after the cohos comes the steelhead, which is kind of what we're up here targeting, or it's definitely what we're up here targeting right now. And a fish that's always been on my bucket list and really wanted to catch. And so let's dive into the steelhead. And when does that kind of fire off? You said there's summer. Let's go into the summer run and the winter run steelhead, and kind of talk about all that.
All right. So the summer run fish, it's kind of, there's not many rivers that get them. There's like 3-4 rivers in the state that get good runs of them over here. Manistee is one of them, and then there's some other ones down in the southwest side of the state that are pretty good too. I don't really do much guiding for that. It's just kind of, if you get a guy that wants to go and do something in the summertime that's a little bit, different, it's definitely a unique type of fishing. A lot of the time it's in really small water, and the other downside to the summer run fishing is a lot of them die.
Yeah.
The water is so warm that they just exhaust themselves in the fight, and I mean, I don't mind it. It is what it is. You're gonna have some fatality while you're fishing, and they are good table fare, but it kind of sucks going out and killing all these fish or whatever just to go fight them.
Is it the same numbers of fish in the summer, or is it less numbers?
Definitely less numbers. There's only a certain amount of summer runs that are like planted and stocked every year, and so there's not a ton of them returning. Like this year was terrible. I didn't even catch a summer run steelhead this year. It was a bad run where I was at least up here. I never got to make it down to the southwest side of the state. They got some down there. They had some pretty successful days, but for the most part up here it was pretty slow.
Yeah.
So
the winter run steelhead is what we're targeting right now. Let's talk about kind of when they move in, kind of some of the areas you target them, and like what we're doing today. And sorry, my throat's killing me, but yeah, let's talk about the winter run steelhead.
Yep. So fall, winter, you kind of get the fall run first. That's kind of like the most beastly of the fish. They're the most acrobatic, the hardest fighting. And
that's what
we're fishing right now. Yeah, I'd say October, November are kind of like the fall steelhead, and then as soon as December comes and the cold weather sets in, it kind of turns into the winter fish. The fall fish are my favorite. They're just filled with piss and vinegar. They just want to fight and jump and, just surprise you with how they fight. You never know what's going to happen. You'll think you'll have his butt whooped. He'll come right up to the boat, and then you go to net him and he'll freak out and just go ballistic and do a 100-yard run again.
That's crazy.
So they're a blast. You catch them multiple ways, and you could do swinging for them on a spay rod. You could streamer fish for them. You can indicator fish like what we were doing today. You can do it on bait casters, center pins, spinning rods, fly rods. You can do it on just about any rig you want to do it. And
it seems like each rod and each setup is kind of has its own little advantages.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was cool today. Kind of fishing the bait casters in different ways in different areas than we'd fish the fly rods. You're just covering water real well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the steelhead fishing today, I had no clue what to expect, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, putting in a lot of time for a few bites today, but we had a huge cold snap. And those fish, man, we're bobber fishing, and that bobber goes down, and you set into them, and it is just straight weight, and they just freak out in that current and start jumping. It is very addicting. I would, if I lived up here, I think that'd be my favorite. I don't know. I haven't done the carp fishing out in the lake, but those steelhead are really cool fish. It's crazy because I'm so used to fishing that same way, and you set the hook, and it's like a 13-inch trout. But when your indicator goes down and you set the hook and it's just like a 10, 12, 13-pound steelhead that comes tearing out and jumping, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to just set the hook and just watch a big bar chrome just sitting down there flopping like crazy. Yeah. And then you get to see them take off through their first run and do a couple jumps, and definitely exciting fights.
It's super exciting.
I honestly really, really enjoy guiding for steelhead. I feel like I'm at the front row seat to the show every day.
Yeah.
Like I get to watch the bobbers drop. I get to watch the clients hooked, set the hook. I get to watch them fight the fish. I get the whole show. So it's pretty fun.
Darryl is very dedicated in the steelhead fishing. Like these rigs that he's fishing on the fly rod and on the spinning rod are just so intricate with the bobber, exactly where he has these split shots. Well, you're kind of explain that rig a little bit, not in super detail, but I mean, you've got like 5 or 6 split shot on a spread out throughout a
Yep.
rig, a swivel. You've got beads, you've got hooks, you've got the bobber.
Yep. So it's the setup's crucial for these fall fish. A lot of times they're going to be holding in the pocket water behind where the salmon were bedding or are bedding. And so it's really important that you can get over these gravel bars, but as soon as you get over the gravel bar, you can drop back down into that pocket water. So you have to run your bobber deep enough so that you can fish that pocket water, but you have to have the split shot spread out far enough that it can drift over those gravel bars. So we've kind of, like, me and some of my friends, and over the course of the years, people have developed this. It's called like a drifter shot rig, and basically what that is you'll have maybe 4 or 5 split shot ranging from like BB to like number 3s spread out on your line. For the most part, it's usually 1 or 2 down low, and then you'll have like the rest of them kind of all stacked up below your bobber. And what that allows it to do, it allows your bobber to stay floating right, so you have the sensitivity of the bobber, but it also allows those 2 split shot down low to drift over the bed.
Okay.
But it also has enough weight, and you have enough line out already, so it'll actually sink back down into that pocket water.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep. So it's it's kind of an intricate rig. It sucks re-rigging them. As you found out today, you break off a lot. It's part of fishing here. You're gonna break off. You're gonna lose beads and egg flies and sinker. I mean, you're gonna lose everything.
Yeah.
Today we didn't lose a float, so that was nice.
Yeah,
but you did make me do quite a bit of retying today.
Yeah, I snagged quite a few things in the bottom. And it's not my fault. That just happens, right?
No, it's
you kept assuring me that that's just part of it. But yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it's insane how large and strong these fish are, and sitting in areas where you're used to catching rainbow trout and brown trout. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let's talk about as the steelhead season comes to an end, you're going to be going down to Florida. And how'd you? I know you fished Florida a bunch growing up and whatnot, but when did you decide, I want to go down here and start working and guiding and all that?
Yeah. So last year, me and my buddy Jay, he's like kind of my partner in my diverse angling business. We kind of both run trips together, and we rent a house together down in Florida, and we stay together up here, obviously at his parents' place up here during the summertime. And we've been really good friends, and we were kind of looking for something to do to get the heck out of Michigan for the wintertime. And we both got our captain's licenses, and we kind of saw an opportunity to go down to Florida, and we did it. We really liked it, and we can't wait to go back.
Right on. And what part of Florida are you in again?
Naples,
Florida. Okay.
Yep.
So that's on the Gulf side there, just above the Everglades, right?
Yep.
And you were telling me when you were going down there first, you were going to be working at a fly shop, but then you very quickly figured out a way that you could spend a lot more time on the water, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the fly shop thing just didn't really, it was kind of a new shop, and, it just didn't really work out. But anyways, I found a job working as a mate originally on a offshore boat, and I was fine with that. I had no knowledge at all about the offshore fishery. Like, I'd only been offshore maybe one time in my life before. And so I went down there just completely open-minded, just trying to learn as much as I could. And I worked with a guy named Joel. He runs a business out of Naples, and he kind of taught me the ropes and got me all set up. And it ended up in me running one of his offshore boats. And that's like the best thing that I think has ever happened to me as far as fishing goes, because it was an absolute blast. And that's definitely my favorite thing to do. Like, there's nothing I'd rather do than be on that offshore boat, 30, 40, 50 miles offshore, cranking on big amberjacks and cudas and groupers, and the fish taste really good down there. For
sure. Everything you pull up out of the Gulf is delicious, it seems like.
Yeah.
Do you do much of the inshore fishing down there?
A little bit. I have a bunch of guys from up here in Michigan that like to do the fly fishing for the tarpon, the snook, the redfish. Get some jack crevalle, Spanish mackerel, stuff like that. We've had guys come out with 11 weights and 14 weights and try to catch the amberjacks, but it's no match for a 60-pound amberjack.
No, that's crazy.
But we catch a bunch of barracudas out by the towers and stuff on fly, and those are pretty fun. A 10, 11 weight, dumping you in the back, and pretty cool eat.
Such aggressive fish.
Yeah,
barracuda are funny though, man. It's like you can see 15 of them floating up on the surface, and none of them want to bite. Then all of a sudden, something triggers them, and one will eat. At least that's how it is in North Carolina. You'll get over these wrecks, and there'll be 15, 20 barracudas around the boat, and without live bait, it's so hard to get them to eat on artificial.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be tricky. Thankfully, the ones by us are pretty dumb.
What's your kind of go-to deal if you want to catch those barracuda on the surface?
So a lot of times, like casting the CUDA tubes is super successful.
Yeah.
They just I don't know why, but
I wonder
they
who
love those
developed that
freaking
CUDA tube and how they were like, oh, this is what we need to do for barracuda.
Whoever did, thank you, because I mean those saved me so many days this year. I mean it's like a guarantee. Like,
even
put a CUDA
in the high sun and everything.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can throw it in the clearest water on the highest sun. You throw a CUDA tube out there, whether you're just burning it, reeling it in, or you're trolling them, you're gonna get a CUDA on it.
That's crazy.
Have
you ever caught anything besides a CUDA on a CUDA tube?
Yeah, amberjacks.
Amberjacks.
AJ's come up
That's
and just
awesome.
absolutely smoke it.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
All right. So there's obviously quite a few different things, but tell me what kind of a day looks like when you run out in the Gulf with you in the wintertime. Like what are you going to be targeting? Kind of how does your day break out, and what fish are you catching?
So a lot of times we start off fishing for snappers. We'll kind of go out, try to get some live bait. We'll try to get some blue runners, some pinfish, you know, just some other silver snapper, just stuff like that to use for live bait when we get further offshore. And then once we get those and we head offshore a little bit, we're going to be targeting mangrove snappers, yellowtail snappers, mutton snappers, gag grouper, black grouper, and red grouper. Those are kind of like the primary dinner fish.
Okay.
A lot of the guys we take out, they're going to be, looking to at least, get some meat to bring home.
Right.
So the snappers are extremely good table fare, and they're fun to catch. They pull pretty damn hard, and it's pretty challenging to keep them away from the Goliath groupers. Yeah,
you were telling me the Goliath groupers down there are like a nuisance.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. So if you guys want to catch Goliath groupers, I know the spot. Every spot, everywhere you go in the Gulf of Mexico, there's 100 of them.
Oh, that's crazy.
And they're big, they're mean, they pull hard, but they get pretty annoying when you're trying to catch snapper and you've got like an 8-pound mangrove on and you get freaking eaten off by a Goliath and you lose your whole rig. They get kind of annoying, but it's part of it. It makes it really challenging for the clients. It's fun watching 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds try to reel in a mangrove snapper. It's only this big of a fish, but the Goliath gets them.
That's nuts. But, I've seen videos of that, man. It's crazy. They're like big largemouth bass.
Pretty much.
And the way they just come suction off the surface, eat stuff off the surface too.
I always say the shape of them, if you were to do like just like a shadow picture of them, they looked almost the same exact shape as a smallmouth.
As a smallmouth, really?
Yeah, they've got like the same big pectoral fin, everything.
Now, can you, like, I always see people, just dropping down like a whole albacore or something like that to them, but will they eat like a jig? Will they eat a top water or anything like that? They seem so aggressive.
I've never got one on top water. I have got a smaller one jigging, but for the most part, you drop anything live or dead down on the bottom. You don't even have to drop it to the bottom. Yeah. Like a lot of times you can just drop it right on the surface, and if they, already caught on you and they've eaten some of your snapper, they'll come right up and eat it. So it's pretty cool.
What's your rod setup for those? If you're going to go target those Goliath grouper, what do you set up?
Just a broomstick. Literally, is a broomstick. It's like, I don't even know. It's 2 inches in diameter, and we put 300-pound mono on it, and we have a Penn International 50 wide on it.
Oh gosh.
And
are you strapping into it?
Nope, we don't. I don't like to do this whole strap the clients into it, because if someone slips or lose their footing, and say something happens with the boat and I can't be right there on the harness, I don't want them going into the water.
Yeah, you'd rather lose the rod.
I'll take the head of the rod, lose the rod, and we can replace that, but I don't want to play around with the whole harness thing.
Yeah.
For the most part, I'm always right there, or someone else is right there. It's a pretty big rod, and you can just put it right on the gunnel and just sit on it. Like,
you said they're solid core, right?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
It's a solid fiberglass rod. And it's pretty fun. You can have 2 full-grown men, like 300-pound full-grown men, trying to push up on the rod as hard as they can. They can't even move it. It's like you're just fighting a school bus right on the bottom.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what other fish are you targeting? You said you kind of start out with a snapper, and then I know we've talked a bunch about it. You're catching African pompano out there, amberjacks, permit.
Yeah.
What's your favorite fish to target out there?
I've kind of got a very humbling and pretty big vendetta with the black grouper.
The black grouper.
Yeah, they. I think they're kind of the top dog, at least for me on my list. Not only are they delicious if you can catch them, but they pull like just maniacs. And
that's cool.
Yeah, they've got quite the attitude on them. Like, you'll hook one, and you don't get him out of his hole right away, like you can't even let him get a foot of line. They get a foot of line and they get back down in their hole, it's game over. You're never getting them out.
Yeah.
They go in there and they flare their gill plates out. They literally go into the hole and then flare their gill plates out so that you can't pull them back out of it. They just sit there, just bulldog mode. They don't want.
It's like Chinese reverse Chinese finger traps.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, you can't move them. I mean, we tried hooking them up to the boat and just pulling the anchor on the boat and dragging them out. It never works. You just break off. But yeah, those black groupers, and then a very, very, very close second, definitely the amberjacks.
The amberjacks.
Yeah, it's way too cool watching them eat topwaters and jigs, and they just pull so hard, man. I mean, you know a little bit about them. You get some smaller ones up in North Carolina.
They're about the perfect size.
Yeah, those are the fun ones to catch, but everyone always wants the biggest fish, right? So we get. I'd say the average size reef donkey down in the Gulf is over 50 pounds.
Yeah.
You get a ton of like the 50 to 80 pound amberjacks. This year we got a couple over 100 pounds. And
that's cool.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, they're insane. They're absolutely insane.
It seems like our average is the near shore fish within 30 miles is like that 25.
Yeah.
Or 18 to 25 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good size. Like, still pull like crazy, but as soon as you get into that like 50-pound caliber, it's a whole nother level. You're looking at, if you've got the right gear, at least a 20-30 minute fight, and you're worn out. Yeah. You're genuinely worn out. Like, we get a lot of kids, they come out, they're like, oh, I want to catch amberjacks. And we're like, all right, we'll go catch a couple amberjacks, and one fish, and they're out cold on the cooler, just face down, just ready to go back. Like, just totally whooped.
Oh, that's fun.
So, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the permit and African pompano. Those are two fish that I've caught permit in shallow water, and I've heard all about fishing permit on wrecks, but not spending much time offshore fishing in Florida. I haven't gotten to do it. Is that do you fish for those in different ways, or kind of dive into telling us about that?
All right, so yeah, the permit, they're kind of around in the springtime. You get an odd permit like during the winter or whatever, but they're not very relevant. The permit, you're mainly fishing live crabs. You will get them occasionally on like a jig with a live shrimp on it. But those are kind of the main two ways to target them. You can sight fish them actually up around the towers, and some of the wrecks will be schooled up in big pods, and you can actually sight cast to them off like the bow of the boat. Cool. So that's pretty fun. And a lot of times, like, we'll be out on a wreck fishing, and we'll just have a free line out with a crab. Yeah. And sometimes we'll put a balloon on it just to keep it up a little bit higher, kind of keep it away from the snappers and stuff. But usually a free line, if there's enough current rolling, we'll just put a free line out with a crab, and just have it ready for AP or a permit if one swims by.
That's really cool.
The APs are kind of the same way. The African pompanos, they are they're just swimming around the outside edges of wrecks, just kind of looking for meals. They really zone in on the crabs for sure. We catch a lot of them just with a chicken rig with a crab on the bottom. Yeah. Same thing, we catch a lot on the free line off the back. And we actually caught one vertical jigging this year.
Really?
So that was pretty cool. But those African pompanos they're pretty cool fish. Not only the colors are just absolutely gorgeous. Like, you want to talk about some pearlescent, purples and blues and pinks. Those, I think, they're probably the prettiest skin of a fish. Yeah. And another really cool thing about the African pompano, the skin is like the best tasting part of the whole entire fish.
Is it not really any scales, kind of like a Spanish mackerel?
Yeah, there's no scales at all. I do hose it off a little bit. You get kind of a little something off of it. But what I'll do is I'll skin the meat. I'll like take the actual fillet and skin it, and then I'll cook just the skin in a little bit of butter. And you basically make it into like little chips. And it is so good.
That does sound delicious.
Me and all the other guys that are down there, we always fight for the skin. Like, it is the best part. Just trust me on it.
Yeah,
if you've never tried it, you got to try it.
I will. That's a bucket list fish for me.
And the meat itself tastes, it's like crab meat. Yeah. Like, when you're cooking it, it smells like crab meat. When it's got the texture and consistency of crab meat, and it's cool. It's really, really good.
So what's the average size African pompano down there, like that y'all are catching in your area?
You get a lot of like the smaller ones, like 10 to 15 pounds, but this year we had a bunch over 20, 30 pounds as well. The bigger ones pull really, really hard too. They've got really sporadic runs. Like, your reel, it almost sounds like your reel's broken.
Really?
Zin, 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 just back and forth, just going.
They've got
crazy.
that big tall head, you know, it's like a permit, but it's got the square edge to it almost.
And
you got to imagine they can just lay in the current with that.
Yeah, that's all they do. They just go on their side, they tilt over, and they just fight you the whole way up.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
you're saying you're seeing a lot of these African pompano permit. What percentage are you actually, you know, seeing and being able to sight cast to?
I've never been able to sight cast to an AP.
Okay.
But the permit, like this year, I don't know, say we caught 100 permit out in the Gulf this year while I was down there, 20, 30 of them were sight casted to. Cool. You know, you get a lot of shots at it. They do get pretty spooky though. Yeah. So sometimes it's best to just let it drift into them so they don't hear that plop.
Yeah, if you pitch it out there and it plops.
Other times they don't care. They'll come right up and just absolutely smash it. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
So we had a question on here. It was let's find it. They were asking about shark fishing in the Gulf. Do you do much shark fishing down there?
Yep. I definitely do a lot. I do a lot more of it with gear than I do with fly rods. Okay. It's really tough to get them to come up on the fly rods there unless you get them like really chummed up and just, you know, absolutely fired up.
It seems like sharks, like once there's blood in the water, it gets way harder to get them to eat artificial.
Yeah.
You know, once they smell blood, or if you see a fish like free swimming and pitch to it, a lot of times they can. Yeah, I can get them to eat a fly, but once I've got chum in the water, it gets tough. Yeah, so I have a good friend and guy down in the Keys. His name's Darryl Rust. He kind of taught me this like little puppy dog way to catch them, and it's really like you're training a dog. So you cut up a bunch of little chunks, like about the size there for the fly that you're throwing, and you get them like chummed up on that. So they'll come up, you get them right by the boat, you throw them a chunk. They circle around, they come back up, you throw them a chunk. You come back up, they circle around, you throw them a chunk, and then they come back up. Next time, you throw your fly in. They grab it right away. Oh, that's smart. It's kind of a little bait and switch thing. You know, it's kind of a little. Well, if you're already chumming, why not just keep feeding them? It's kind of fun. Right. So it's cool. And then say like you hook one, sometimes they'll still come back because you're so zoned in on that chunk just being that proper size. Yeah. So, you know, you're just fishing a red fly with like a red rabbit shirt. I mean, it doesn't even really matter as long as it's the right color and shape. They're gonna do it. But I've seen a fly that looks like your chum. Exactly. Or Sharpie, the color of it. Yeah. But we have a bunch of different species of sharks. We've got bull sharks, tiger sharks, black tip sharks, and lemon sharks, and some nurse sharks. The most common one I'd say is the black tip shark. We can catch those on fly on the beach. When we first get down to Florida in December, there's like Spanish mackerel and stuff on the beach. Yeah. And sometimes the sharks will zone in on those, and the black tips will be like, it'll be like a big bait ball. It'll be the Spanish mackerel blowing up on pilchards, the sharks blowing up on Spanish mackerel. Wow. And it's just like a big feeding frenzy going on. So you can get them on fly. Chain. Yep, exactly. And then we've seen quite a few tiger sharks. We've seen a couple just free swimming out where we're like 30, 40 miles out. Yeah. We tried casting them. We never get them to eat. But definitely a lot of bull sharks and hammerheads too. We get some hammerheads and bull sharks eating our fish on the way up when we're offshore. I think you're going to get a fish in the boat between the hammerheads, the bull sharks, the Goliath grouper. Some spots it's not as bad. You know, the Goliath grouper, as soon as you get out past 200 feet, they kind of let off a little bit, but then the sharks kind of kick in. So you kind of just got to pick your poison. Yeah. I'd rather have sharks than Goliaths because the Goliaths are they're so annoying. I mean, at least the sharks, they just cut you off right away. You know, you're not stuck, losing all your line to them. But it is what it is. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of sharks in Florida. I don't really do a ton of fishing where I go out and specifically target them. There's definitely spots you can do it. I probably did 4 or 5 days of, specifically only shark fishing. And, every day we went out and hooked, 5, 6, 7, 8 sharks and, cool. Had 300-400 pounders on. So yeah, that's awesome. Yep. So you were saying that the tiger sharks down there, you have trouble getting them to eat. Yeah. Are they just smarter? Are they spooky or what is it for you? I don't know. I haven't really had many chances at them. I've only seen, so many of them, and, I've only got to cast baits at so many of them. I've never really had one like come up in a chum line or anything like that. The bull sharks, on the other hand, I mean, they'll eat anything. You throw a chunk of anything out on a hook, they're going to eat it. Same with the black tips. They're usually pretty mellow. The black tips can get spooky sometimes, but for the most part, they're pretty willing to eat a fly or eat a chunk bait. That's fun. Yeah. I was just curious because the tiger sharks here, like you'll pull up on a lot of the wrecks, and they're curious fish, and it seems like every wreck has one or two. But that's one fish that's like here, I feel like always eats. Anything I drop back to it. But one thing that works really well is a ringtail with its tail cut off, and you just on a circle hook and drop it back to him. He'll eat that almost every time. But it's just funny how the same fish bait can behave so differently in different areas. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. Like your redfish in North Carolina are completely different than the redfish that I fish down in Florida.
Yeah, very different, very
Yeah.
different. So that's a good kind of segue. I wanted to ask you if we could dive in a little bit. I know you're not doing as much guiding on the inshore, but what does your inshore fishing down there kind of look like if you're fun fishing or the trips you do run inshore?
Yep. So a lot of it's just going to be push pulling mangrove shorelines depending on the tide. If you're on the right tide and you've got a good morning or evening, there is some belly crawling redfish action
Nice.
going on where you can actually sight fish them and, see them up crawling. A lot of the stuff that, it really is. And we get some nice ones too. We get some, redfish over 10, 15 pounds and, the occasional shot at like a nice, decent Florida bull and, 20, 30 pounder.
Yeah.
And, there's snook and tarpon mixed in and some jacks mixed in as well. But like a typical day of backcountry fishing in Naples area, you'll just kind of start off pushing some shorelines, doing some blind casting, just trying to work it for tarpon and snook are kind of your main targets. While you're out, pushing the flat, you might see jacks busting on bait. You might see tarpon rolling. Sometimes you'll see snook just laid up, hanging out. Same with tarpon. You might see, a laid up tarpon just kind of hanging out. We do have year-round resident fish there. So it definitely is you have a shot at a tarpon every day you go out in the backcountry in Naples. There's just, there's always a couple around. And usually you've got at least one or two shots at one every day if the tide's right.
Right.
But the snook fishing is really, really good. Despite the really bad red tide we had last year, the snook fishing has been really good. Every day I went out snook fishing in the backcountry on a fly fishing trip. We caught snook every single day. And
that's one I think my favorite inshore fish to catch. I wish we had them in North Carolina. Snook are just so cool.
They're cool. Whether you're throwing a gurgler on the surface in the morning or you're throwing a streamer or you're sight fishing them, they're just they're cool fish and they pull pretty dang hard.
Oh, they do pull hard, and they're like a bass and a redfish kind of mixed together.
Yeah,
I just love pulling on those mangrove edges and just they blend in with those roots for so long, and all of a sudden you can just kind of see one laying there. One head just kind of barely sticking out over the sand.
Yeah.
And then you got to somehow get your fly or soft plastic like
right up under
these mangrove roots. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely tests your casting and your ability to get that nice shot right under the mangrove and avoid me going to push pull over and get it 100 times a day. But they're fun. They're definitely a very readily available fish and you get shots at big ones too. Like there's definitely some legit 50-inch snook in some of the areas that I fish down there. And I think we only got 2 over 40 this past season, but we did have quite a few over 30 inches.
That's awesome.
And another cool thing you can do for them too is fish the dock lights for them.
Yeah.
And
that dock light fishing is hard to beat.
I don't know if you've done that before, but
I've done it once.
And it's pretty cool to see these big giant snook, and that's kind of your best chance to get a big one. And it's just cool to go do it.
Yeah, and it's like everyone in Naples has dock lights too.
Yeah,
and every dock light has fish on it. Seems like.
Yeah, pretty much. If there's a dock light in Naples Bay, there's going to be snook on it. There's so many snook in the bay. It's crazy.
Oh, that's fun. That's super fun. We had one more question come in. Can you keep and eat the Goliaths down in Florida?
You can't. There has been talk and rumors about them opening a season for it. I hope they do. I really do.
Yeah.
I think they could definitely use a little bit of clearing out from the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. But right now you can't even take them out of the water. No matter what size they are, you can't even take them out of the water at all. So we get them up. We try to get the hook out. We'll do a picture right along the side of the gunnel of the boat. You lean over the boat, grab his tail or whatever. But
were they endangered at some point?
They were.
But I can imagine them being that aggressive, like fishing for them when you could keep them would probably, if there weren't limits and whatnot, you could probably wipe them out pretty quick.
Yeah.
You just pull up to a wreck and pull, 400-pound fish in your boat and take off.
You're full. But they could definitely use some herd thinning for sure. There's way, way too many of them around now. But so hopefully that does happen. I really do hope it. And apparently they taste pretty good. I've never got to taste one. But back before all of the stuff with them happened, I had some buddies that have had them and said they're pretty tasty,
good.
actually.
I've never tasted any grouper that I didn't like. It's all pretty good.
Yeah.
It's all pretty darn good. Well, guys, that kind of brings us, it timed out pretty nicely. I wanted to give Darryl a little bit of time, though, to kind of tell y'all how to find him on social media and his website and tell y'all a little bit about his business. And hopefully y'all can book a trip with him and get out in the water.
Yep. So website's just diverseangling.com. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm sure Judd's got me tagged on one of his recent posts. It's just Capt Darryl Holtz. And I've also got Facebook if you guys want to add me on there. But I'm always moving around. I'm always looking to just, be where the fish are. That's why I travel from here to Florida and, kind of get away from this cold weather. But if you guys ever want to get out and fish, whether it's in Michigan or down in Florida, just give me a shout and we'll get something set up.
Awesome. Well, guys, I forgot to say at the beginning, but it's super helpful if y'all do it right now. If y'all would just go share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Obviously, people will be able to tune into it now, but they can see it later on. And tell people that weren't able to see it tonight, if they're wanting to watch it, that they can see it on YouTube tomorrow, as well as listen to the audio format of this show on anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. But we're just super excited. I think through this winter, me and Billy have been talking. We're going to try to do some more of these remote shows. If I'll go fish somewhere, Billy goes and fishes somewhere, we can sit down and do these kind of like on location shows. And I would have gotten more into the intro, but I wanted to let Darryl start talking, one, because he has so much good information, and two, because I really can't talk that well right now, and I'm losing my voice as I keep talking. But thank you all so much for tuning into episode 21 of Eastern Current. Like I said, this is Captain Darryl Holtz. Go check him out and go fish with him, and we look forward to seeing y'all on episode 22. Later. Bye. Oh, gotta press end again.